Steve Rozenberg. Steve, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Alex.
He is well. And so are we. And so is our guest. Hopefully you are as well. But what we're trying to do is dive deeper into the specific cities and areas where we manage properties, and sort of not dissect, but like zoom in on the impact for both individual property owners as well as some residents. We have our expert, Devyn Gillespie here, to talk about Denver. And Devyn, first, how are you? And second, how's Denver?
Well, thanks for asking, Alex. I'm well. Just navigating these kind of strange times that we're living in, and Denver's still hanging in there. People are getting a little bit of unrest settling in, wanting to get back to work and get back to normal, if you will, if that's going to happen. So, but overall, things are okay.
Good. So we've been collecting delinquency data in every single market. I'm pulling up. We're about to update for this week's, but as of last week, do you recall what the delinquency were versus our average in Denver?
Yeah, for us specifically, we're doing okay in the delinquency department. We've had residents still come through in April. We're less than 10%, which is better than the industry is doing right now. I think May is going to be the more telling month with delinquency. I think that the ramifications of March are starting to trickle through in April here, and we'll see. I think we'll see a little bit more delinquency in May.
Devyn, are you getting a lot of residents that are like in leading up to April? Did you get a lot of residents come to you and let you know that they were or were not going to be able to pay rent? And are you seeing that start again for May already?
Yeah, in Denver, just a small handful, one or two residents proactively reached out to let us know they were having a hardship. There are some people that have chosen to not communicate and not proactively reach out, and so now it's kind of us chasing them, which, I would advise any residents that see this to be proactive, communicate with your landlord, with your property management company. I know that we're making a very concentrated effort to be as accommodating to our residents as we can, in conjunction with our landlords, and kind of working out a plan to make sure that people can stay in their homes. The last thing that we want is a bunch of displacements at the end of this when, eviction restrictions get lifted and things like that. We don't want that. So we want residents to proactively communicate. We want to work together with them and put together a plan on how they can stay in their homes. So for the couple that have reached out, like I said, we've actually been able to work out some plans with them to get them current. And for the ones that haven't, we'll continue to reach out and try and put together a plan to help them out.
Makes sense. How are you handling maintenance out there? Luckily, I don't believe there's any snowstorms going on, but in general, what's the consensus with maintenance and dealing with that situation?
Well, funny enough, we actually just got about a foot of snow in the foothills.
I was going to say, I thought I heard something about a snowstorm rolling through the country, but I wasn't sure where it went. So
yeah, the weather's still kind of on and off. It's melted off now, but we're still getting snow. So we're still getting people that, whose furnaces are going out. We're getting no heat calls. Luckily, we have some vendors that are still rocking and rolling. They're doing their thing, and they're reliable for us. So any of those kind of, whether they're emergency or, still important but not an emergency type of maintenance related issues, we are able to handle those currently with the vendors that we have on hand. But yeah, I probably couldn't say the same thing for other people out there. I know that just Denver specifically is a very tough market for vendors. It's been a booming market for so long that a lot of vendors are working on new construction and things like that, and they make plenty of money that they don't want to do the little one-off maintenance stuff. So yeah, we've been lucky to build a good vendor pool there that has been supporting us through these issues.
Are you seeing people doing the like the city in general? And I'm not sure how much you're paying attention news-wise and stuff like that, but how are they reacting and dealing with the environment, and specifically to investors and to the residents?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed dynamic, which I think is what's happening in most of the country right now. You kind of have these two sides, a side that wants to just keep the stay-at-home orders in place as long as possible for the wellness of everybody and to protect, the weakest among us, right? And then you have the other side that just says, I need to get back to work. I got, my company didn't get any of the PPP money. They can't afford to pay, my salary anymore. And so there's kind of desperation on both sides, which is a little unsettling. People that are desperate to protect others, and then people that are desperate to protect themselves and to start providing for themselves and for their families again. So you see some conflict that's starting to arise in that regard. As far as policy goes, I mean, lawmakers have put enforced the no evictions restrictions. So courts aren't handling any of these civil cases. So, residents are able to stay in their homes. They're not going to be evicted. That doesn't mean that the balances are going to go away. The rent will continue to accrue. And then when those eviction restrictions lift, then landlords can go and move forward with those evictions. And like I said earlier, we're trying to avoid that. We don't want our residents in that boat. We want to work with them through this to avoid that outcome in the end. And like I said, our owners are being very generous, and we're putting together generous plans to make sure that our residents are taken care of. But yeah, the laws are still in place, protecting people kind of in their homes and keeping them in their homes for now. But there is some unrest that's starting to drum up.
Well, it's interesting. You said something that really resonated with me, that, even though they have the eviction and forbearance and they're putting these moratoriums on this, that does not hold true with business owners and their businesses. So if they did not get any government subsidy on the commercial side, that rule does not apply, is my understanding, for having a forbearance or not having to pay your mortgage or your rent on a commercial building. And so again, if you own a small business and now you have to pay the mortgage or the rent on your business structure, that could be a problem. Now, I know in Texas, at least as of today, they are starting to release the order, the stay at home, all of those orders, and they're starting to relax that. And they're saying by Friday, it will be much more open than it is today, than it was last week. And I saw in Florida, I believe they're opening the beaches on the weekend. So I think we're starting to see a little bit of releasing, because like you said, I mean, at some point people are going to start getting desperate and, taking desperate actions over this, which is not what the intent is, and certainly not what we want to happen. I mean, we don't want people to go out of business or investors to lose their houses because they can't pay their mortgages, which is very scary. It's a scary thing to think about.
Yeah, the commercial world, that's a whole nother animal itself, right? Yeah, I have a lot of empathy for the businesses out there. There's a lot of businesses that are struggling, and those businesses employ people that are our residents, right? And so it's this kind of full circle of viciousness that this virus has wreaked havoc on. And it's sad to see on all fronts, for those business owners, for those employees that are our renters. But yeah, it's, there's been protests in Colorado. There's people that are ready to get back to work. And then, like I said, there's those two sides that are kind of at odds with each other right now. And so, there's no plans set in place yet to reopen Colorado as a whole that I've heard of anyways, as of today. But I know there's a lot of pressure on the local legislature and the local government there to start putting some plans into place to get things open back up.
Well, it's not helping that the PPP ran out as well, the Paycheck Protection Program, which was well instrumented to help businesses survive through this sort of winter, as we can think of it. But the money ran out. I mean, one of the companies I own, it's just, we applied and everything went okay, it was approved, and then no money. Right, money ran out. So that's really not helpful. But as of this recording, the Congress is heavy, hard at work to get additional, I believe, well, I can't remember what the number is, but it's billions of dollars towards the
I
program.
think it's another 250 billion. I think the
250,
original
okay.
fund was 249, and they're trying to get another 250 billion to fund these small businesses, and hopefully it goes to the small businesses.
Right.
We're a small business. There's a lot of small businesses out there that are struggling, and I've seen press clippings and things that some bigger companies, that are worth hundreds of billions of dollars are getting some of this bailout money. So I hope that those people will back down. Will fund, these small businesses can get the funding that they need to keep people employed, and like I said, we're trying to end that vicious cycle that's occurring right now. And if we can get that money, to the businesses this month, then May looks a little bit brighter. Hopefully, like I said, I'm concerned about May's rent, especially knowing that money's run out and businesses are struggling. So we got to get that money into the business owners' hands and hope that they use it responsibly.
Have either of you guys heard, and I was wondering this, when it comes to, and I go back to, them giving the forbearance for, they've been saying about people with mortgages and stuff like that. Does that apply to apartment building loans and which is a commercial loan? Does it apply to those people? I know it applies to the residents, but I don't know if it applies to them. And you're running a business, so could you get a PPP loan if you own a commercial apartment complex? I don't know the answer to that.
You should be able to. I mean, if it's set up as its own entity, as a business, an LLC or an S corp or whatever way you're holding that. I haven't looked into the fine print of the law, but I would assume that would classify as a small business, and you should be eligible to receive that funding.
Yeah. I think that forbearance. In terms of forbearance, what I do know is that each bank has been instrumenting own programs. So we highly recommend the loan holders to call their, financial institution and see what deal they can work out. I have not heard anybody say my bank refuses to work with me. Like, I have not heard that yet, which is very encouraging.
It is. I do know that the lending practices are tightening up now. And I know some banks are starting to not write home equity lines of credit. So I think what they're doing is they're proactively clamping down so that they do not loan out a bunch of money and then maybe people file bankruptcy or something else, and then they have that money on the books that they'd never pay back. So I think that they're preemptively tightening up the purse strings, if you will, a little bit, just in case it does go that direction. And maybe there's some indications that they see that we don't know about that maybe is leading that way. I do not know. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah, Alex, just to add on to your point there, I think it's a great point. I kind of opened up talking about residents being proactive with us and working out, rent for us, or with us, I should say. If you're a landlord right now and you have mortgages on your property and you're struggling in any way, whether it's rent's not coming in or in your own personal job, if you're still, employed and not, a full-time investor, absolutely reach out to your bank. Absolutely reach out to them and let them know that you're struggling. I know that, like Alex mentioned, banks kind of are implementing their own programs. There's no like federally mandated program. But to Alex's point, the banks, I know that I've gotten notes from my banks on my mortgage, we're here to help and please reach out. And the best thing that you can do, just like our residents, is be proactive.
Sure.
Stay ahead of it. Call your bank and figure out. And a lot of banks that I've seen, they're just adding on that payment to the back end of your loan, right? So if you have a 30-year note, you're adding a month or two on at the end of your note, and things work out a little bit. Now, I can't say that that's going to be true for everything, but I've heard that on several instances where banks are just rolling those payments onto the end of the note, and you can get a little bit of forbearance. So definitely call your bank and work with them right now.
Devyn, do you know, is the city of Denver or the state of Colorado, how are they trying to implement any programs or anything individually? Because I know some states and cities are actually creating their own ecosystem of help. I'm just curious if they're doing that for a resident side or the landlord side or just the people in general.
That's a great question. I believe I've seen something, but it's not coming to mind right now. I'll look into that more and circulate it over to you, Steve, and you can blast it out to the crowd. I know that other states do, like Arizona has a fund. I've seen that they have a fund that's set aside several $1 million to help residents right now, passed legislation to help residents. I believe that Colorado does, but I can't remember the exact bill right now. But yes, there's lots of programs out there. So landlords should be reaching out to the bank. They should be looking at programs. I know that there's, federal legislators that are trying to pass, no rent, no mortgage payments on a national level for like 90 days. I don't know how the economics of that would work, but I know that there's efforts, kind of all over the place to help people, avoid mortgage and rent payments right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out in the next week or two.
Yeah, and just to sort of close out, unless Steve, you had some other points, I wanted to share some data just freshly, just off the presses.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, we don't have Denver listed down in these markets, but what we do have is total delinquency as of 19th, which is today, right? Oh no, yesterday. As of yesterday. Total delinquency for the company is 7.26%. Our trailing 12 months average, typically we're at 3.73. So we're about 3.5% higher than normal. So these are not devastating numbers, I would say. Well, I mean,
no.
Given that we stayed home for the last 45 days, like we feel the devastation going to a grocery store. The single family homes, which is the majority of our portfolio, seem to be, for now, handling this.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm, as Devyn said, I'm concerned or curious about the May, June, because, and Alex, you and I have talked about this before. Once this releases, like Texas is doing in other states, it's a slow release. It's okay. It's not essential, but it's not unessential, and release and release and release. That's going to take a while for these businesses. Like I've heard I think it's in Texas, they're saying if a restaurant opens, they've got to have the 6 feet of separation and they can only be at 50% capacity. Well, if anyone knows margins of a restaurant business, you can't operate on a 50% margin. You're actually losing money because their margins are small to begin with. So how do you operate? You're almost better off staying closed till it's all over than operating at 50% with your staff and losing money. It's a really tough thing to do. I don't know. That's what scares me is the trailing number, as you said, but the 3-month, 4-month trailing number of the effects that we are going to feel. And I think of it like throwing a rock in a pond and seeing the rippling effect of the waves. That's kind of, I think we're in the epicenter right now, and I don't know if we know the effects yet. And that's just my personal opinion. I could be way off, but that's just what I think.
Hey, Steve, it was bothering me that I couldn't remember what I had seen previously about the assistant. So let me, before we end here, give a website that people in Colorado, residents, landlords, everyone can go to. It's the Colorado Office of Economic Development. So the website is choosecolorado.com/COVID-19. Again, choosecolorado.com/COVID-19. And it's a resource center for businesses and then also people that have been laid off. There's a link to layoff assistance page and programs that have been put together. So one resource that can take you to multiple resources. So it's a great page for people to visit if they're experiencing any kind of difficulty right now.
That's great. That's good. And I think people will appreciate that, to get, something from the government, what's going on, and to get instead of maybe watching the news for an opinion, they can get the facts from the government of what is actually happening. So that's good. And again, I appreciate your time, Alex, as always. I know you've got a lot going on your plate. Anything else you can think of, Devyn, before we wrap that people should know about, or is that, I think we kind of hit everything?
Yeah, I think we covered it all. Just stay safe, and hopefully we can all get back to work here as soon as this thing passes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed.
Well, Devyn, Alex, gentlemen, thank you for your time. For those of you watching, make sure you go to our situation page on mynd.co, MYND.co, and there you'll find the situation room. and all latest up-to-date information. Alex was explaining the data. You can find that information there to see what is actually going on in delinquencies, which we share out. And again, just good to know information about your local region, state, or the U.S. in general. So everybody, thank you for watching. On behalf of Devyn, Alex, myself, and Mynd Property Management, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Be well, stay safe. See you on the other side.
See ya.